It's election night in Pennsylvania and the polls have just closed.
Over the last few weeks, voters across the state have been judging what issues matter most in a host of contests up and down the ballot.
From an open seat on the state Supreme Court to an open race for control of Allegheny County, one thing is certain tonight, and that is change. And we'll be with you as the results come in. I'm Natalia Hillen.
And I'm Cade Montgomery. Welcome to Election Night 2023.
Good leadership is what we need, and that is what we are offering.
Some of these local ones, they come down to the wire. You may be that one vote.
Do you think if Rocky wins, he's going to manage it the way it needs to be managed in 24? Yeah.
To keep our middle class way of life. We are for Rocky. Rocky!
Right now in Allegheny County, votes are being tallied that could change the direction of the region for years to come.
As the votes come in, we will be live from downtown Pittsburgh with the latest updates.
But since it's still early, let's begin with how voting went in the city during the day. In the previous local elections, voter turnout in Allegheny County was only 58%. Reporter Addison Deal took it to the polls today to find out why people are coming to vote and how we can get these numbers up.
Since the foundation of this country, voting has been essential to our rights as American citizens. So why aren't more people showing up to the polls on Election Day?
I feel they should have a voice. I think a voice is important and an interest in what's going on in politics and what's going on around our region.
And it's their future. They have to decide on some things for themselves.
Today's race will determine who will be taking on the role of Allegheny County Executive, District Attorney, State Supreme Court, and many more. While these titles don't hold the same appeal as a possible president, these people will be making long-lasting decisions that will affect every person in the state of Pennsylvania.
We can all sit around and complain, but nothing changes unless we actually show up and make our voice heard. This is all part of making your voice heard. I know we all get apathetic and tired and burnt out by the whole process. But honestly, nothing changes unless we get together and enough of us say the same thing to get things to change and move forward.
Last November's election showed an increase in voter turnout with voters under the age of 30 to 32%, according to a Tufts University survey. While the number of young voters has increased, there are still 2/3 of the younger population that are not voting.
We got to make it known that, as I said earlier, we're going to be making these decisions, so what we do now makes a difference. I mean, we're not making the decisions and voting now, the hell's gonna do it?
Voting gives you a chance to make your voice heard and influence how your government runs. Every vote counts, so make sure you get to a polling place and cast one. In downtown Pittsburgh, this is Addison Deal reporting for UView Television.
Now, Addison joins us here in studio to share more on her reporting.
Yeah, so it was really interesting, talking to everyone coming out of the polls. I was kind of just standing out there for a long time, but talked to everyone, found out why they were voting today. Voting is so important. So many people were talking about how it's their civic duty to vote, It was surprising, though, when I was on campus, I was trying to find students and get a student perspective on voting, but there was not many students on our campus who were voting today, surprisingly.
I think because since we're everyone's coming from different states and stuff, do you think that could be part of the reason of why we don't have as many people voting, or?
I definitely think so, but it is interesting. Today I talked to the judge of elections, actually, when I was voting myself, and she said that if you are a temporary resident of Allegheny County, you actually still can vote in Allegheny County elections. They just won't use the ballot right away. If there's a dispute about the election or if there's a tie or something, that's when the votes will come in. So it's really interesting. Even if you aren't from here, you're not registered in this county, you still can vote in the election and have a voice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably just don't even know
I mean,
that.
I didn't
don't
know
look
it.
into
I
it
didn't know
enough.
that either.
Yeah, but it's very, very good for students.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Addison. Now moving on to the marquee races of the night, beginning with the Pennsylvania race for Supreme Court. Judge Daniel McCaffrey is the Democratic nominee running for a seat on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. According to Spotlight PA, McCaffrey is from Philadelphia and was elected to his current position on the Superior Court in 2019, which handles criminal and civil appeals from the Court of Common Pleas. The site also states that McCaffrey served in the military for 3 years, joining age 18 and being honorably discharged. Post-military, he attended Temple University for both his undergrad and law degree. McCaffrey began his career back in 1991 working at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office as a prosecutor in the Major Trials Unit. According to his website, he is highly recommended by the Pennsylvania Bar Association and is endorsed by Planned Parenthood PA, the PA Democratic Party, and the PA Professional Firefighters Association, and more.
Judge Caroline Carluccio is currently a judge for the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas and is running to serve for the Republican Party on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. She was first elected as a judge in 2009 and served in the family, criminal, and civil court branches for 14 years. In her second bench, Judge Carluccio was elected president of the 2,000-member Montgomery Bar Association. In 2022, she was unanimously chosen by her peers to serve as the court's first female president judge in history in Montgomery County. In the last few weeks, her campaign fundraising has increased. According to SpotlightPA.org, quote, Carluccio raked in $2.7 million over the past 5 weeks in the form of donations and in-kind contributions from groups funding ads on her behalf, end quote. Financial support for advertisements has come from a political group tied to Pennsylvanian Jeff Yass. Other donations came from the PA Future Fund chaired by GOP power broker Bob Asher and the Hospital and Healthcare Association of Pennsylvania.
Jill Beck is one of the Democratic nominees running for Pennsylvania Superior Court. According to her campaign website, Beck lives in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood of Pittsburgh with her family, where she actively volunteers in children's classroom and the community. Beck graduated top of her class from Duquesne University School of Law and began working for nonprofit organization Kids Voice, which represented abused and neglected children in court. Some key endorsers of Beck are Planned Parenthood PA, Philadelphia Federation of Teachers, and the PA Democratic Party. Judge Tamika Lane is also a Democratic nominee running for the Pennsylvania Superior Court. According to her campaign site, Lane is from Philadelphia and serves in the Court of Common Pleas, where she was first elected back in 2013. She got her law degree from Rutgers Camden School of Law in New Jersey and afterwards served as a law clerk in the Court of Common Pleas. Some key endorsers of Lane are Planned Parenthood PA, Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, PA Democratic Party, and Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 5.
Judge Harry Smell Jr. has been a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in Westmoreland County for the past 8.5 years and is running to serve for the Republican Party on the Pennsylvania Superior Court. Back in 2014, he was appointed by Governor Tom Corbett to serve on the bench and was unanimously confirmed by the state Senate. In 2015, he won both parties' nominations to a full term in Westmoreland County. Judge Smale served in family court during his time on the bench and has conducted a civil litigation docket that had to do with government and municipal legal issues, elections, and energy and land use challenges. Judge Smale is a long-standing Republican and served as a solicitor for 15 years on the Westmoreland Republican Committee. On October 16, 2023, Judge Smale answered litigation reporter Eliza Furman's questions about what makes him the best candidate, how important consensus is, and what factors matter in deciding when recusal is necessary. Also, moving on to Maria Batista, is a former assistant district attorney and has over 15 years of legal experience in civil, criminal, and administrative law. She is running to serve for the Republican Party on the Pennsylvania Superior Court. Batista was a Commonwealth attorney and counsel in the Departments of Health and State. She was an examiner presiding over hundreds of cases, which included the Department of Corrections. Batista's campaign stopped for a few days after she got struck by a car 2 weeks ago while putting out yard signs. On the evening of October 22nd, she was hospitalized overnight and was released Monday after getting treated for a hairline fracture of her collarbone.
Judge Matt Wolf is the Democratic candidate running for the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. According to his website, Wolf is a proud veteran and active National Guard cavalry scout who has served for 20 years in the U.S. Army. He also has experience as a trial lawyer for civil rights and is currently the supervising civil judge of the Philadelphia Municipal Court. On the campaign page, he is described as, quote, the only sitting judge running for Commonwealth Court, end quote. Key endorsers of Wolf are Planned Parenthood PA, Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers, and Sierra Club.
Megan Martin has 30 years of legal experience in government law, worked as a judge in the Lancaster County Court of Common Pleas, and is running to serve for the Republican Party for the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. Martin was born and raised in Delaware County and has served in all 3 branches of government, served as an attorney for the U.S. Navy, and was the first woman to serve as the Pennsylvania Senate's Secretary Parliamentarian. Martin was a former YWCA domestic violence legal clinic pro bono attorney. To campaigning full-time, she resigned from her position in the Senate. And according to her campaign manager, she visited all 67 PA counties before the primary election. Minutes ago, the polls closed across the state. So let's send it over to UView's Ethan Rowinski for some context to the races in the county and a look at the vote so far. Ethan?
Am I live currently? Okay, so hello, my name is Ethan Rowinski. I'll be giving you some live reports. Currently, as you see right here, this is from a poll that came out on October 21st to October 23rd. And from that, I'm actually a little ahead, sorry about that. So county executive race are two candidates, Sarah Innamorato and Joseph Rocky. Innamorato was ahead by 3% in the polls, 47% to 44%. And you have to keep in mind that there is a 3.5-point margin of error, meaning that this race is very neck and neck. And we can contrast this with the 2019 election results, where you can see the current county executive, Democratic Rich Fitzgerald, won with 68% of that vote. And a lot of these numbers came from his ability to tie or even win the more rural parts of the county. Sorry about that. If you look at precincts like Pine, West Deer, and Richland Township. In all of these, Fitzgerald was either able to tie, he lost by just a few votes, or he won by just a few of these votes. The question then becomes, is Innamorato going to be able to repeat this? In the primaries over the summer, in the primaries this past summer, rural precincts voted for the longtime county treasurer John K. Weinstein and not Sarah, which creates this challenge of convincing someone who may have preferred Weinstein to vote for Innamorato over the only Republican candidate, Joe Rocky. For both candidates, though, they'll both be fighting for the undecided voters. As you can see here, the people who are already for either candidate are very firm in their beliefs. So it's going to be these 10% of people that the Inbold preliminary poll suggests who are undecided that will sway this election one way or another. Moving on to the district attorney race, it's even closer than the county executive race, with the 25-year incumbent Republican Stephen Zappala leading with 46% of the votes, and Democrat Mike Dugan only behind by 1 point, making these two effectively tied. Most of Zappala's support comes from outside the city of Pittsburgh, as you can see. The undecided voters are right on the fringes of the city, or even right along the borders of Allegheny County, as you can see here in Millvale and in right along Hazelwood. So this is likely where those 9% of voters that the preliminary poll brings up, this is likely where those voters are. So in order to squeeze out a victory, these are the precincts that both those candidates are going to need big wins in. While Zappala has the name recognition, it's clear that the name alone is not going to carry him to victory. With the violent crime as a top priority in voters' minds this year, both candidates are hoping that their campaigns and previous works have shown to voters that their stance is the correct one and that they should be elected. Likely, though, the position will only be a few percent of the vote, not whoever wins. Now we're going to move on to some early returns of the vote. I have my computer right here, and we're going to start analyzing who has come in early. So for county executive sheet, we have about 111,000 votes in so far, which is about half of what the turnout was last year. And as you can see, so far very much for Sarah Innamorato. You know, Democrats usually tend to vote early. So a lot of these results are definitely going to be swayed towards, the Democrats, as we'll see in the rest of the elections as well. Even in those counties that we were talking about earlier, a lot of those have swayed very heavily for Sarah, which we weren't exactly expecting. But as we were saying, this is very early in the results. And just to give you exact numbers, currently she's in the lead with 67% of the votes, and Joe Rocky is at 32% of the votes. So, we'll definitely keep an eye on this. We only have about half of what we got last year, so we're definitely expecting more votes to come in. But yeah, that is where we are at with the county executive. For the district attorney race, it's a little more mixed up. We definitely have a lot of different, as we were expecting with the poll, it was very like half and half. So we kind of see that mix throughout the entire thing. See precincts along the Ohio River and the rural counties. Also along the Hazelwood area, you kind of see that kind of show up as for the Zappala. So for exact numbers, very much split. We still have the mix of early Democrat voters coming in. So we see Matt Dugan has 60% of the votes right now, and Steve Zappala is at 39% of the votes. You know, like we said, or like I said, only 100,000 votes in, so we still have, you know, a lot more votes to come in throughout the rest of the night. Then for our Supreme Court race, you know, it's still, like we were saying, Democrats vote early. So most of all our votes in are for the Democrat candidate for McCaffrey. That's what I was about to say. And you know, we have all of our major cities already voting in. Like, you know, you usually expect that. We have the Pittsburgh, Erie, Philadelphia area, all very heavily swaying blue. And you know, for exact numbers, right now McCaffrey is at 80% of the vote with only 9% counted. So make sure, just keep in your heads, these are very early votes. We're going to see the rest come in throughout the rest of the night. And Curlucio is only at about 20% of the votes. So yeah, that is where we are at right now, and we'll be sure to keep you updated on these votes as the votes come in. Sending it back to the studio.
Thanks, Ethan. When we come back, we'll have an interview between Bridge PPU's Carson Brunn and Professor Josh Wolf to learn more about the history of the Allegheny County Executive. Stay tuned.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back to
Daybreak.
Chicken Guy opened in PPG Place on Monday.
The bridge would open before the 1 year marks to check out the 20th annual gingerbread display.
Share with you this week's ray of sunshine.
We are still somehow hanging around in the playoff.
It gives Georgia Democrats some hold onto the governing body.
200,000 people still in harm's way.
This weather is perfect for those cozy nights indoors.
Welcome back. While the races for the state's various courts will be decided by all voters in Pennsylvania, one race with major implications for the state is taking place right here in Allegheny County. That is, of course, the race for county executive between Democrat Sarah Innamorato and Republican Joe Rockey. Carson Brunn is currently in Point Park's Center for Media Innovation with history professor Josh Wolf to discuss Allegheny County's historical voting patterns and what power is at stake in the county executive race.
Good, I'm doing great.
Excellent.
All right, so we are here today to discuss the history of the position of the county executive for Allegheny County and the powers and responsibilities that come along with that role. So I'll open up with maybe a question that borders on too basic, but let's lay this out for the people that are listening. What is the county executive, and what are the responsibilities and powers associated with that position?
Sure. So the county executive is the highest elected office in Allegheny County, and with Allegheny County being the largest and wealthiest county in western Pennsylvania, that also makes it a very powerful regional political position as well. There are various responsibilities that go along with being the county executive. One of the largest is informing the budget of the county every year. Allegheny County has about $1 billion annual budget, and the county executive plays a key role in determining how that budget is distributed, how funds are allocated. Now, that is a negotiation, of course, with the county council, but nonetheless plays a big role in deciding the yearly budget. Very importantly, the county executive also is the deciding seat on the Board of Elections for Allegheny County. So the Board of Elections is comprised of 3 members. It's always 1 Republican, 1 Democrat, and then the county executive. So whatever party the county executive is, that determines what the political composition of the Board of Elections are. Now, because we have had mostly Democratic county executives since the position was created, we have mostly had a Democratic Board of Elections. In the wake of what happened in 2020, obviously there are people that are concerned about the integrity of the Board of Elections. There was the request that Allegheny County not certify the 2020 election results, and of course, when it went to a vote, the board voted 2-1 to certify the Allegheny County election vote, but the one dissenting vote was a Republican. So there is some concern that if the board were to end up in Republican control and we have a contested 2024 election again, but I mean, just because that's how it played out in 2020 doesn't necessarily mean, but that's why a lot of people feel like that county Board of Elections position is very important to consider in this particular election cycle. They are responsible for oversight of the county jail, right? And this is a big one. The county jail houses more than 1,000 inmates, and anybody who's been paying a modicum of attention to local news over the past year or two knows that things at the jail, all is not well at the Allegheny County Jail. And this is actually something that both Joe Rockey and Sarah Innamorato share common ground on. They both agree that better jail oversight is needed, that reform needs to happen, that a change in leadership needs to happen, that the county executive needs to be more involved in their direct role of oversight, by attending meetings, by having a voice, by being involved on a more consistent basis. And then the county executive has a tremendous number of appointments that it makes, or he or she makes in that position. The governance of Allegheny County, there's about 500 different board and commission positions that help govern Allegheny County that are not elected positions. These are appointed positions, and the county executive either directly appoints or jointly appoints about 3/5 of those 500 seats. Now, those appointments do have terms, so it's not as if whether Rockey wins or Innamorato wins, they're going to have 300 immediate appointments to make.
Sure.
But as those positions become available, they get to fill them with their own appointees. And so a considerable amount of appointment power. Take, for example, the Allegheny County Board of Health. There are 9 seats on the Allegheny County Board of Health. All 9 seats are appointed by the county executive. There are 7 seats on the Jail Oversight Board, and 3 of those seats are appointed by the Allegheny County executive. There's 7 seats on Alcosan. 3 of those seats are appointed by the county executive, and then 1 of them is jointly appointed by the mayor of Pittsburgh and the county executive. So a lot of appointment power throughout the county in that position. And then finally, the other major role of the county executive is pollution regulation and enforcement. They're supposed to help protect the air quality of Allegheny County. It's a challenge. I mean, I think regardless of who the county executive is, you can pass a lot of pollution regulations, but nobody controls the wind, right?
Of course.
And that is a perpetual problem that an Allegheny County executive is going to face, the toxic airs that blow over from our neighbors. But there's also other things. I'm not an expert on pollution regulation. I'm not going to pretend like I am.
Sure.
I know that there's more that can be done. Well, it's a point of contention between Rockey and Innamorato. What can be done, what's realistic, and what can't be done.
Sure. And when you say things like, controlling the wind, we'll work on that.
Right.
We'll start working on that right away.
Yeah.
But also, I'm thinking like an East Palestine situation in Ohio. If that stuff blows over here, that could
Exactly.
cause some problems. We got to manage that kind of thing. Sure. And how does that now? We also have county commissioners.
Sure.
That's a separate thing, and there's a board of those.
Well, the Board of Commissioners doesn't exist anymore. So Allegheny County used to be governed by the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Three commissioners, and they were both the legislative and executive branch combined into one in Allegheny County. Then in 2000, the new Home Rule Charter took over.
Yes.
And the Home Rule Charter eliminated the county commissioners, the Board of Commissioners, and replaced it with the county executive and the county council. The county council is composed of 15 members, 13 of them from assigned county districts, and then 2 county council members at large. So in some ways, the county executive is more powerful than the county commissioners were. As an executive, the county executive is more powerful, right? As the executive branch of the government. Veto powers over council legislation, appointment power of the county manager. That's probably something I should have mentioned earlier. Appointing the county manager is one of the key powers of the county executive as well, because the county manager oversees day-to-day operations of Allegheny County. So it's a very powerful and important position within the county bureaucracy. But in other ways, the county executive is weaker than the county commissioners were, because they do have a council that can act as a check on the, and that was the purpose of going to the new Home Rule Charter, create a better checks and balance system between the county executive, legislation, and judiciary. And I think most people in Allegheny County have been happy with the new Home Rule structure that took over starting in 2000. But yes, that is the main difference between what were the Board of Commissioners and what is the county executive now. The commissioners were legislature and executive combined into one, and under the new Home Rule, the council is the executive, the legislative rather, and the county executive is the executive branch.
Sure, and that makes sense. That would seem like a situation where that's a wise move, because that's how our government is structured at the state and federal level.
Correct.
Having that separation, I would imagine, makes the checks and balance system easier, and that is one of the sort of the core tenets of how our government's been run. Yes. So like you mentioned, this position was started in 2000. It was first held by Jim Rodney.
Yes, only Republican
to hold
the position. Correct.
Yes.
Now, one of the reasons Roddy was a seasoned Allegheny County politician, but one of the things that really worked to his advantage is he was the key champion of the Home Rule Charter. That was a task that he was assigned by the Board of Commissioners in 1998 to win popular approval for the idea of creating this new county executive and county council to replace. And Roddy did a great job selling it to Allegheny County, and Allegheny County rewarded him by electing him to the first executive position over the very popular coroner Cyril Wecht, who was his Democratic opponent in that first county executive election. Yeah. But Roddy had a tough time because he was a Republican executive with a Democratic majority council, and it made him hard to get any of his agenda through, and it made it hard for the council to get much of their agenda through either. So it was a tough 4 years in terms of positive legislation for Allegheny County.
Yeah. It sounds unfortunately familiar.
Yeah.
And then the office was held by Dan Honorato, who was a Democrat.
He was. He held the position for 8 years, took office in 2004, made a run for governor in 2010. And if he had won governor, he would have obviously stepped down as Allegheny executive. But he lost to Tom Corbett. Why he lost is a question of debate, but one thing that definitely hurt him was the entire debacle with U.S. Airways and the Pittsburgh International Airport, and Dan Honorato. A lot of people blamed him, and he does bear some blame for his taxation scheme that led to the gradual diminishing of Pittsburgh Airport as a U.S. air hub, and eventually 12,000 U.S. air jobs left Allegheny County. That's a lot of jobs.
That is.
But it's also not fair to put it all on Dan Honorato either, because U.S. Air definitely broke some promises in that whole agreement as well. So
yeah, in a system. In any bureaucracy, it's tough to put the blame on one guy or one person.
But when you're running for governor, it was definitely
yeah.
It was his Achilles heel in his run for governor, I think.
Yeah, eventually. Well, of course, at some point, your past will either get levied against you or put in your favor. And then right. In 2012, the outgoing county executive Rich Fitzgerald was elected. He has served 3 terms.
Term limited now, so he's done. I think generally when we look back on Fitzgerald's time in office, we're going to remember him as being a pretty good county executive overall. He did a lot to help Allegheny County recover from its credit crisis, and he's definitely leaving office with Allegheny County's credit rating much recovered from where it was when he took office. I think he's tried hard to look at economic diversity, at job growth, at attracting youth. You can say this for him as well. There were no significant tax raises in Allegheny County during his 12 years. And while there were no significant tax raises, there were also no significant budget shortfalls either that required mass budgetary layoffs or anything along those lines. On the other hand, he's not leaving without his share of criticism as well.
Sure.
As we already touched on, the issues at the Allegheny County Jail are unfortunate. And as county executive, he was supposed to be far more, and he hasn't attended a meeting. He sent a proxy to all of his meetings, including having the proxy vote for him. I understand in some of the meetings, and I mean,
well, that's not great.
That's not great.
That's not great.
It's not great. And then the county property assessment issue is on him a bit too. We haven't had a property reassessment since 2005. No, sorry, that's a little late. That 2010, I think it is.
Okay,
rather, it's a long time.
It's a decade, over a decade.
And as a result, you've got some neighborhoods that have gone through gentrification and become enriched that are undertaxed, and other neighborhoods that a decade and a half ago were in a stronger financial position that are now more financially depressed, whose tax rate should probably be lowered. And
Sure.
so there is this question of, do we need to rebalance the assessments or are the assessments fine where they are? And that's another thing that separates the two candidates running for office today.
Yes, because Joe Rocky said that he would forego that.
Correct. It is not. He doesn't think it's a priority. That is correct.
Sure.
And Innamorato thinks that it is a priority to reassess property, especially to protect the elderly who are on fixed incomes, and then poor property owners who shouldn't face losing their property because they can't afford an inflated tax bill.
Sure, and especially in a time when the economy is so shaky like it is, that it could be something that is really important to voters, especially who are in that position, that would be looking or maybe hoping to get a tax break, or I guess a tax cut, or her looking to improve their situation. And that's the interesting things you mentioned with Rich Fitzgerald, that while he was in office, no significant tax increases, and also that the budgets were sorted out without any major slashes. So you're looking at a situation where more conservative or Republican individuals are looking at that as, okay, we didn't raise my taxes, because that's a big thing that gets thrown around nowadays. I would imagine on every level of government to a certain extent.
Nobody likes being taxed.
Sure,
right?
Of course. Yeah, of course. But then at the same time, those conservative folks, the people on the other side, and more progressive folks, could appreciate that there weren't these massive budget slashes, and that money was allocated towards wherever it was going.
Right, exactly. On the other hand, we can't deny that the COVID years took a toll on downtown Pittsburgh.
Of course,
right?
of course.
You can't walk. I mean, one of my favorite lunch places for years was Zorba the Greek. And
Where's that?
It was on Smithfield.
Okay.
It's not there anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because there are fewer and fewer lunch places all the time. And it's sad to see, but I mean, you know, no county executive could have seen COVID coming.
No.
And nobody could have anticipated the emptying of downtown office spaces, and then the very slow return to downtown office spaces, and the ripple effect that has had on the Golden Triangle in particular. And you know, I mean, 50,000 job losses over 5 years out of the county is concerning as well.
That is.
And that's obviously why it's caught the attention of both Innamorato and Rocky as they make their case for being the next county executive. How do we not just stem the job losses, but how do we reverse that trend and create positive job growth in Allegheny County again?
Yeah, whenever I first looked into both their platforms, that was an interesting thing, that both of them seemed, and I do think that has, I would imagine, been a bipartisan topic for some time, that you know, we've got to start to recover, especially from COVID. You know, I drive through the city and I drive past entire office buildings, floors that are empty, that look like, you know, there are desks and chairs, but there's nothing on the desks. It's clearly spaces that have been vacant for quite some time. And that is sort of, in a way, that is like the lifeblood of the city in some sense.
In some ways, I mean,
work.
we can offset some of the office job losses by converting into more housing and encouraging, but that takes time. That takes companies willing to invest in converting office space into living space, and it takes an increase in services being. Although we have seen that. I mean, having the Target open in downtown is great. Having that new Burlington open up in the old Kaufman's building is great.
Yes.
I mean, there are positive signs for downtown residents to keep them here or to attract them here.
Yes.
And increasing residency in the city can, again, offset some of those office space losses. But I do think whoever becomes county executive does need to try to find a way to incentivize workers back into the city, not just because it creates a more lively downtown, but because it creates a more vibrant downtown economy.
Yes, there's multiple aspects to that, reasons why you'd want to bring those people back. So, and we discussed anything else we want to add about the legacy of Rich Fitzgerald as a county executive?
You know, again, I think in the long run, we're going to remember him more for his successes than for some of the less positive aspects of the last few years, especially as passions cool and we start to be like, well, wait a second, let's assess what's within our power and what is outside of our power. And, you know, I think Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis is going to be a political rock star one day. And I think Rich Fitzgerald was one of the first people one of the first people in power, I should say, to recognize that he's going to be a really impressive leader among Americans soon. And I think that'll be part of Fitzgerald's lasting legacy.
All right. And what are some of the biggest issues that Westmoreland County is looking at? Or sorry, Allegheny County.
Westmoreland County.
I'm going back home. I'm going back home to my parents' house. What are some of the biggest issues facing Allegheny County as a little wrap up here?
Sure. Well, I mean, as we discussed, the job issue certainly is one that needs to be addressed. You know, they've both been talking about policing and how we can address policing in the county more effectively. There are ideas of expanding the county police force by 10% to offer greater support to municipal police forces. There's other ideas for expanding mental health and intervention services. But whether it's truth or perception, there is the idea out there that we need more policing, and both candidates seem on board with the concept of more policing, just different approaches to how that would look and how it would unfold.
Sure, they got to look into the details there. Yeah. Well, I think we're just about out of time here.
Well,
I appreciate it, sir.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was quite enjoyable.
Great to meet you for the first time here connecting, and a great conversation. Hope that everyone's enjoyed this segment, and I think we'll be sending it back to the desk here pretty soon, or on to the rest of the program.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Can't wait to see those results start coming in.
Yeah, and stay tuned for the program, because I do believe that's coming up either next or later on.
But when we come back, you'll hear from our reporters about some prominent issues in Allegheny County. We'll be right back.
Regular physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health. The benefits of physical activity include brain health, weight management, reducing disease, strengthening your bones and muscles, and improving your ability to do everyday activities. So, it's time to get up and be active.
Now let's check back in with our results whiz, Ethan Rowinski, to see what we're hearing from the voters. Ethan?
Currently, the numbers with 121,000 votes in, so just about 10,000 more votes in. Sarah is about at 65% of the votes, with Rocky at 34% of the votes. So just about the same numbers that we were seeing earlier, just with more voters. So it'll be interesting to see if this pattern is going to stay throughout the rest of the night. That's kind of what we're going to be looking at, guys, because as you can see, she is definitely still dominating way more in a lot of these more rural regions than what we were seeing before, or than what we were seeing compared to the 2019 election. Looking at the DA race, that is also staying fairly, still very diverse within its precincts of who's voting for what. Currently, with still 10,000 more voters in, Dugan's lead has gone down by a little bit to about 59%, and Zapala's is just under 41%. It's very interesting to point out that with the large bulk of early ballots coming in, most of those are going to be Democrats, and we see that in the DA race. But people did not vote straight ticket Democrat. Zapala's name, his term being over 25 years long, that's still carrying him through this race. It's one of the reasons that he's still so close to tying, even with the bulk of Democrat early ballots coming in. So we'll definitely keep an eye on this. This race in particular is going to be extremely, extremely close. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And also looking at the Supreme Court race, we have more of those ballots coming in. By the way, just to clarify, this source is from the New York Times, which is they're getting their info from the Associated Press. We're getting some of those more rural counties coming in. We have Greene County, Franklin County. We also have Potter County. Those are definitely coming in strong red. We also still have around Allentown, Philly, this whole border of Philadelphia, near New York, New Jersey, all that stuff, Erie. And it's very interesting to see, even with the bulk of early ballots coming in, those majority being Democrat, if we compare that to the 2022 midterm, there is a lot more red here than what we're seeing currently. So, it's interesting to see is McCaffrey's, his hugely expensive campaign, upwards of $22 million. Is that going to help carry him and get more of those rural areas, especially when a lot of those donors are from more GOP-related candidates? And just to end it off on one of these major elections, but however, from Channel 6, in the Philadelphia mayoral race, the Democrat Cheryl L. Parker is now the 100th mayor of Philadelphia over the Republican David Ho. That makes her the first female leader, the first female mayor of Philadelphia. She ran on a more education-based campaign where David focused on more crime, and it's clear that to the Philadelphia voters, sorry about that Cheryl's campaign and her promises were more promising to the voters. And with all that, we'll get you some more updates after our next break, and we'll toss it back to the studio.
Thanks, Ethan. With the overturning of Roe v. Wade last year, this election is leaving Pennsylvania women wondering what will become of abortion in the state. Reporter Leslie Krebs has the details on what candidates' stances are on the issue. Leslie?
Back in June of 2022, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, abortion has been the main topic of choice in this year's statewide judicial election. All the Democratic candidates for the PA Supreme, Commonwealth, and Superior Court have made it known that they support the right to abortion, with all being backed by Planned Parenthood PAC. Candidates Jill Beck and Tamika Lane not only have the support of Planned Parenthood, but are backed by reproductive, women's, and educators organizations. Meanwhile, the Republican candidates have clearly stated they do not support the right to abortion. All candidates are endorsed by the Pro-Life Federation, a group that opposes abortion even in the case of rape or incest. Commonwealth Court candidate Megan Martin once wrote that she agreed with the overruling of Roe v. Wade and that it was, quote, egregiously wrong, end quote, in a questionnaire. This is the same person who said Ronald Reagan is the president who most closely represents her political philosophy. This election is crucial to abortion rights as Pennsylvania is a state that if won by either party, its electoral votes can change the tide in the election. While abortion is legal in PA, if Republicans were to favor that right, it could be swiftly stripped away.
When looking at the Allegheny County executive race between Sarah Innamorato and Joe Rockey, they have different views on what should be done to improve air quality, fracking, and other environmental issues. Candidate Joe Rockey has not explicitly stated his environmental stance on his website. However, in an interview with KDKA, he expressed that he supports fracking with environmental protections and that air quality laws have been enforced onto companies. He cites our loss of partnering with U.S. Steel was a detriment to helping the environment and increasing employment. His opponent, Sarah Innamorato, on her website supports connecting with the Allegheny County Health Department to enforce laws against pollution, using federal investment to install stormwater infrastructure, starting a Healthy Homes initiative, and utilizing zoning. She also looks to modernize facilities to uplift environmental protections. The Allegheny County executive race is one of the most anticipated races in this local election. Reporter Peyton Celesti has the info on who's been supporting these candidates. Peyton?
Thanks, Nat. After winning the Democratic primary for county executive in May as part of a progressive wave in Allegheny County, many assumed that former State House Representative Sarah Innamorato would have an easy path to victory in the general election. After all, Democrats do have a 2-to-1 voter registration advantage in the county. But then out of nowhere enters Republican Joe Rockey, a former PNC Bank executive who ran a campaign that could signify a possible upset win that would make him the first Republican Allegheny County executive since Jim Roddy was elected in 1999. A pro-Rockey PAC group called Save Allegheny County conducted a recent poll that had Innamorato with only a 1-point lead and 11% of voters still undecided. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Rockey campaign has managed to shrink the gap in the race by raising more than double the amount of money that Innamorato's campaign has. To put this in perspective, Rockey's top 4 donors make up Innamorato's entire campaign budget, according to PublicSource. More money leads to more advertisements, and Rockey has been dominating the airwaves since the end of August, trying to appeal to voters as a centrist problem solver with common sense solutions. Shortly, I'll talk about the attacks that both candidates have made against each other in the airwaves and in debates leading up to Election Day.
Homelessness is an issue that has grown worse in Allegheny County in the aftermath of the pandemic. Reporter Leslie Krebs has the latest on this issue and the work one candidate is doing to help.
The housing crisis is an issue not only sweeping the nation and major cities, but can be found locally here in Allegheny County. People are not only not able to afford to buy a house, but can barely afford rent in small neighborhood apartments. Because of this, many are forced to move into low-income housing, and even some have been faced with homelessness, an issue which has become more urgent in Pittsburgh in the past year. While many candidates in this year's election have strayed from the topic and shed little light on the matter, candidate Matt Wolf was a key player in an act that prevented many from being evicted from their homes during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. This program became a national model for rental assistance and eviction diversion across Pennsylvania and the United States. Wolf has also spent much of his legal career fighting discrimination in housing, a matter which Wolf stated most largely affects Black and Hispanic female heads of households. His work ensured that eviction and debt cases were being properly processed, preventing racial judgment in cases. Meanwhile, other candidates have dedicated much of their key focus to other matters, not involving the prevention of homelessness and housing discrimination.
Public safety within Allegheny County has been a touchstone issue as safety concerns increase across all areas. In the race for Allegheny County District Attorney, public safety is at the forefront of who voters will choose in the polls. Democratic candidate Matt Dugan expressed on his campaign website that if elected, he will work with law enforcement to redirect nonviolent and low-level cases away from the criminal justice system while relaying them to mental health and drug abuse treatments. His other stances focus on equity in the system. He advocates against the use of cash bail, expanding victim services, implementing prosecutor training programs, and more. We were able to hear more on Dugan's perspective of the criminal justice system at an event last week. Take a listen.
And the criminal justice system does a really good job of just cycling people through a system without ever thinking about core drivers, right? We want to think about why people are coming to the criminal justice system. We know that the vast majority of folks are there because of substance abuse issues, untreated, undiagnosed mental health issues, instability due to poverty. So when it's safe and when it's appropriate, we want to connect those folks to services so they can get help as opposed to criminal convictions and a lifetime of impediment and roadblocks. So, we really want to think differently about the purpose of criminal justice, and then we really just want to be really nimble and agile, where we can free up space and time and resources to actually prosecute folks who are doing real harm in society.
Dugan's opponent, Republican District Attorney Steven Zappala, elevates the acts he has done in office. On the Allegheny County DA website, they explain that Zappala, quote, implemented divisionary court programs, drug court, DUI court, mental health court, and veterans court to keep people out of jail and assist them in getting their lives back on track, end quote, as well as a county-wide camera system and over 20 policies. Here's what Zappala told UView about public safety for students at Point Park.
There's an open-air drug market. If you walk outside and you walk over a couple blocks, the people that are homeless, depends on how you look at it, I guess, but as a practical matter, the guys come in and they sell them dope all the time. We never had that before. We could take care of that in a hurry. Smaller crimes, nuisance types of stuff, the stuff that bothers me, quite frankly, about the university. These guys defecating in alleys and exposing themselves to the ladies when they dance, And if you guys are promoting one of the best arts schools in the country, which I believe that you have, I mean, it's hard to attract kids to Pittsburgh when you come downtown and you see some of the things that unfortunately are going on right now.
In the race for Allegheny County Executive, candidates Sarah Innamorato and Joe Rocky have different approaches to handling the growing crime problem. Innamorato on her campaign website states that she is, quote, committed to using the tools of the county government to tackle the root causes of violent crime, improve health outcomes, reform Allegheny County Jail, and expand mental and behavioral health services, end quote. She also references her beliefs on protecting abortion rights, while candidate Joe Rocky on his campaign website states that his plan for public safety is to, quote, notably the reopening of a juvenile detention and rehabilitation center to house underage youth accused of serious crime, end quote, as well as staffing the Allegheny County Jail to expand medical health and medical services. In any race, advertising budgets are a huge factor in a candidate's success. Reporter Peyton Celesti has an update on how these ads have been used in the Allegheny County executive race.
Like most races, accusations get thrown around when things start to get competitive. With lots of advertising, Republican Joe Rocky has put a lot of pressure on Democrat Sarah Innamorato in the race for county executive. Innamorato surprisingly did start the attacks on the airwaves in her first campaign out of the general election season in late September. The ad says that Rocky, quote, bankrolled Trump-supporting extremists, backed Republicans repealing reproductive rights, and said he won't stand up for the right to choose, end quote. Innamorato has continued to attack Rocky on the abortion issue, but he has declined to reveal his stance, saying the election is not about national political topics like abortion, since the county executive doesn't make those kinds of policies. However, Rocky has conversely counterattacked by labeling Innamorato as a socialist, pointing out the fact that Innamorato was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America from 2016 until 2019. More recently, Rocky found an opportunity to criticize her membership of the DSA after the Pittsburgh chapter made pro-Palestinian. Innamorato did denounce the organization, according to the Post-Gazette, and stated that she left the DSA in 2019. Rocky has certainly created strong narratives against Innamorato by outspending her on advertising, but it'll be interesting to see how he fares in such a blue county.
Since 1920, the League of Women Voters has worked to educate and engage voters in all kinds of elections. That is why last week, the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh hosted a forum of candidates for the offices across the county. We sent reporter Jonah Summers to the event to learn from the candidates and organizers about their thoughts on engaging voters.
Yeah, so let's talk the importance of voting in April of 2023. Voter registration for teens and young people under the age of 22 was at an all-time high. But young people still are not making up the majority of the vote in the state of PA. But the Allegheny general election's happening this Tuesday. Well, the candidates, they have something different to say about it.
My message is, I've run an unapologetic campaign based on smart reform, change. We've had the same district attorney here in Allegheny County for 24 years. It's probably longer than most of the students have been alive, right? We're talking about bringing in new ideas and new vision for the district attorney's office. We need change right now.
I then asked county treasurer candidate Erica Brusellers what she thought was the best way for young people to get out to the polls on November 7th.
It's a great question, and I think there's a couple pathways to that. One is we've seen a lot of success around university students that are involved in politics, reaching out to other university students. For folks not in universities, that might look more like family, like generational folks reaching out, bring them to the polls. Unionized workers might be hearing from their unions.
So I'm at the St. James AME Church in the east of Pittsburgh, and tonight was the League of Women's Voters meet and greet, where all of the candidates in the general elections in Allegheny County were invited to meet with some of the people in the community. And there were sponsors there who helped host the event, and they had a couple of things to say as well.
Yes, so I strongly believe that the young should be involved to know the who, the what, the where, and the why. Predominantly in the Black community, we think that the presidential election is the most important election. And so we need to teach our young folks that our local elections, what's happening right now, is the most important election in our life.
And it just being days before Election Day, candidates Matt Dugan and Sarah Innamorato got the opportunity to give a quick speech to the community.
We need to talk more about how we can lift communities up, as opposed to how we can lock kids up. I do not accept this fact that certain communities should be forever plagued with drug trafficking and violence. We need to invest in our kids. We need to invest in kids' opportunities, and we need to invest in their future.
This race is about a people-powered campaign. It's about people-centered policies. It's about making sure that we are pulling up more seats to the table in county government. It means that we are building a county for us all. And that means whatever the color of your skin, how you worship, who you love, what your ability is, it means that you deserve to feel safe and secure and have access to opportunity and safe housing, and that you can call Allegheny County home.
Candidates did not only just talk about the importance of young voters voting in this upcoming election, but they talked about all things that are very, very important right now, such as the jail, such as housing, and different things that are happening right now in Allegheny County. Reporting for UView Television in East Liberty, this is Jonah Summers.
After the break, we'll hear from our correspondents at the watch parties of the Allegheny County executive races candidates. Don't go anywhere. let's hand it back over to Ethan Rowinski for a final update on the count so far. Ethan?
Okay, welcome back for your final election update of the night. We just got an update about 6 minutes ago, and right now we're at about 160,000 votes coming in, which is about 40,000 more from our last update, and we're getting closer and closer to that 200,000, 220,000 that we were at last year. Hopefully, we get more votes coming in because, we want as many people to vote as possible, as many people to get their voices heard and get, representation that they want. For the county executive race, currently Sarah Inmorado is at 60% with Joe Rockey, who, fun fact, his party was endorsed by the Forward Party, the party founded by former presidential candidate Andrew Yang. Very interesting fact. He is currently at just under 40% with 39.1% of the vote. Very interesting that, Sarah's vote is definitely coming down. If we look into the precincts that are officially reported, the officially reported ones are going to be in green, just so everyone knows. It's not just one party that we're waiting to come in for, or I guess the average party people that we would expect. It's people in the more rural parts of Allegheny County. It's people in the more, Pittsburgh proper areas of Allegheny County. So, we're waiting on all those votes in. If the trend continues, then, Sarah is looking very comfortable right now. I bet they're all very happy at her watch party. But, we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the night. We still have tens of thousands of votes to count. And we'll see where that leads her. If that lead's going to stay the same, if it's going to dwindle, increase, we shall see. Moving on to the district attorney race, like we were saying, this race is going to be very, very close. All throughout the entire county, people are not voting straight ticket. They're voting for each individual candidate that they enjoy, that they believe in, and Zapala definitely holds that. You see throughout the entire county, in the northeast part especially, we see a lot of Zapala support, a lot of Zapala love along this Ohio River section. Always interesting to point out that you can slightly see Squirrel Hill always point out right in the little square, right in downtown Pittsburgh, or right in Pittsburgh proper, I should say. Currently, numbers, we're looking at 55% for Matt Dugan, and Zapala is at 44%. Very, very close race. This is going to come down to the wire. Like we were saying, all throughout the county, individual votes are very much going to count and be the deciding factor in this election. So hopefully you got your voice in, because you could be the deciding factor in this election. Moving on to the Supreme Court race, we got more and more of those votes coming in. We're still seeing a pattern of very blue, not just in the three standard counties of Allegheny, where PA is, which I believe is Center County, and also the Philly area, Philadelphia County and the surrounding counties. We're seeing a lot of blue, in Cumberland County, York County, closer up to Erie, Venango County, and Westmoreland County. It's a lot more blue than you would normally expect from just the rural areas. So definitely keep an eye out for that as we see more of these votes in, and even after we end our broadcast, definitely keep checking up on these websites. This one is from the New York Times. You don't need a subscription for it, so you don't need to worry about that. You can definitely just check in. And then for the county executive and district attorney ones, you can check in just by looking up Allegheny County election results, and that should be the first link that pops up. My name is Ethan Rowinski, and I have been giving you your live election results. Now we'll toss it back to the studio.
In his final push before Election Day, Joe Rockey rallied his union supporters in downtown Pittsburgh. Reporters Jonah Summers and Nick Kanopka were at the rally yesterday and got the scoop on his latest policies and promises.
In the last 24 hours before Election Day, Republican County Executive candidate Joe Rockey rallied his union supporters at the Laborers International Union building in the Cultural District. There were all kinds of supporters there, the Steamfitters Union, Women for Rockey, Democrats for Rockey. Let's take a look.
6 months it was Joe who, now it's Joe Rockey, the next county executive. Why? Why are the Steamfitters backing Joe Rockey? It's about jobs. We have a middle class way of life. To keep our middle class way of life, to keep working, to enjoy a good, thorough economy that is thriving, we are for Rockey. Yeah. Rockey!
44,000 jobs in Allegheny County have been lost in the last 5 years. But because of Rocky's plan to grow jobs, this has led to the support from groups like the Steamfitters and the police union. Other groups like the newly founded Women for Rocky have also shown their support.
And it was something that we all recognized that our region was in decline, with jobs, population loss, crime. And we had to do something about it, because if we don't, our kids and our grandchildren are not going to be able to find meaningful work here. So, we could sit there and talk and say this is a shame, or we could do something. And we are not talkers, we are doers.
I also got the opportunity to talk to some Joe Rocky supporters and how they feel about Sarah Inamorado's vision for the county.
Sarah said that she wants to make the Allegheny County a laboratory for progressive ideas. We can't get too many jobs, enough jobs, by building windmills. We have to build normal things. We have to take advantage of our natural resources, and that's the opposite of what she wants to do.
Despite Joe Rocky's support from union workers in Allegheny County, ultimately the decision is going to be up to Allegheny County citizens and who they vote for in this general election. In the Cultural District of Pittsburgh, reporting for UView Television, this is Jonah Summers.
Nick Konopka joined Jonah at the rally, and now he's here with us to share more on the event.
Yeah, so me and Jonah went to this event, and it was essentially a get out the vote type rally for Joe Rocky. He's really been pitching himself as a moderate type candidate, a candidate that is a centrist. I mean, he was endorsed by Andrew Yang, who was formerly a Democrat. He is now a member of the Forward Party. So when we went to the event, he was showing off his union support, because traditionally union support kind of goes towards the Democrats. So in this case, Joe Rocky, he's trying to pitch himself as a centrist, and the type of event he ran was a lot of union support, because a lot of the people we talked to said that Sarah Innamorato was extreme for them, because she is a progressive candidate. She's different than the type of Democrats that have been elected in Allegheny County. Rich Fitzgerald, who was talked about earlier in the show, he is a moderate Democrat. He was progressive for his time when he was elected in 2012, but Sarah Innamorato is much more to the left. She was a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. So it was kind of just showing off how Rocky can be a moderate and how Sarah Innamorato is too extreme in their view.
Mm-hmm. How was it like being there, like in person with all the stuff going on?
From a reporting perspective, it was actually pretty cool. I mean, not like showing favoricy to any candidate in particular. It was just cool to be in the room with a bunch of like people getting ready and rallying for like such an important election, because throughout this process we sent people to events, but it was correspondence, it was other people, so I'd never actually been to one of these events. I've been to some other political events personally, but this one was really interesting, and like all the cameras were set up, and it was like a well-produced event, and it was just full of union workers, Republicans of all stripes. There were some Democrats. One of the things that Jonah talks about in his package is that there are a lot of these grassroots groups that formed for Rocky. There's Women for Rocky, which the organizer for that talked about. They were just a couple weeks ago. The organizer for Women for Rocky was concerned about Sarah Innamorato, and so she just formed this group on Facebook, I believe, and just gathered some women. And the campaign brought them in. They said, "We'll take, you guys are going to be at the polls, handing out literature, handing out, papers, telling people to vote for Rocky." There was Democrats for Rocky, because as I said, even though Sarah Innamorato is a Democrat, she might be too extreme for some people. So they had a lot of those groups, and the air was pretty electric, I must say, because you had all these Rocky supporters, you had politicians, you had the former governor and Tom Corbett. And you had, rank and file union members, and you even had Harry Smale Jr. was one of the judicial candidates, and he was there as well, handing out papers and pushing for his campaign, because, in these coordinated campaigns, Republicans have to stick together, Democrats have to stick together if they all want to win.
That's true.
Yeah, it's amazing how election season can bring together people no matter what the political party, these groups, and yeah, it's amazing to see people actively wanting to vote and supporting candidates of any party.
That's true, yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you so much for being here,
Thanks,
Nick.
Nick.
Of course, yeah, thank you.
Reporter Jillian Musser is live at the Joe Rocky campaign watch party. Let's see what's going on there. Jill?
Good evening, this is Jill Musser here reporting for UView Television at the Wyndham Grand in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh for Joe Rocky's election party. While we have not officially yet started, people are beginning to file in, and everyone is sitting down, grabbing refreshments, conversating with each other, and there definitely is a sort of energy that is palpable here in the air tonight. Everyone is excited to see how this results turn out, and I'm excited as well. Now back to the desk.
We're going to go for a quick break, but tune in and stay tuned.
Hey.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. My name is Craig Verkowski.
Tonight, we'll cover all your international, national, and local news.
Australia is one of the most biodiverse countries on the planet.
Over 8,000 items are to be auctioned off at Pittsburgh International Airport on October 22nd.
Last Thursday, the House Committee investigating the January 6th attack chose to subpoena former President Donald Trump. All this and more coming up on Newsnight.
Welcome back. Our very own Ethan Rowinski and reporter Colleen Winder attended a Democratic rally on Sunday to hear from some candidates and voters.
Hello, I am in McKeesport for Sarah Inamorado's Rally for the Valley event, in which multiple Democratic PA political figures are here to support her run in the county executive election. The rally included speakers such as Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis and Senator John Fetterman that explained the importance of Democratic values and how Sarah Inamorado embodies them.
We need somebody who's going to center and ensure that the people closest to the pain are closest to the power. And I know every day that Sarah gets up as our county executive, she will work to make sure we create a county that works for each and every one of us.
Sarah Inamorado then took the mantle to express that she has experience in public office that will unite the people of the county.
We're about how do we use all of our departments to build safe, stable, and affordable housing so that seniors can age in place. We want to make sure that we're investing in mental health care, that we're putting an end to gun violence by making those strategic investments that are necessary within our communities.
We asked attendees what their thoughts were about Sarah's campaign and the issues that were important to them.
I think Sarah's talented. I think she'll serve all the people. I think she has a heart for the job, and I think she'll work hard. And I'm looking forward to voting for her.
She's the kind of person that reaches out to all different kinds of people. And I think that's what we need. I mean, this city for too long has been run by a certain close group of people. And, Sarah's not that way.
For UView Television, this is Colleen Winder and Ethan Rowinski sending it back to the studio.
And Colleen is with us right now to share more of her reporting. Welcome, Colleen.
Hello.
So first, I want to know, what was it like first being at this rally?
It was really a good experience. Even walking in, it was format as a dinner. It was very conversational. When we got there a little bit late, but tables and chairs were set up. People were sitting. Signs were being displayed. It was really a nice little hall that they have. And there's a lot of good speakers too. We got the mayor and the former mayor of McKeesport. We got Austin Davis, who I really enjoy Austin Davis. And they have Sarah Inamorado, and even John Fetterman was there. At first he was just in the corner, but he did a pretty quick speech.
Wow.
It was really beautiful. I really like how the speakers framed Sarah Inamorado's campaign. They really prioritize Sarah Inamorado as a person for everyone. Mm-hmm. They hyped up her ability to talk to a lot of people on the different political spectrums. I know there's a lot of controversy around her extremist point of views, more leftist point of views, but in reality what they talked about and what she talked about up on the podium was how she has multiple connections, partnerships, how she has former training and experience that can uplift the community itself, rather than pushing her very specific campaign issues that she focuses on. It really was for the everyone type of campaign promotion, which was really nice. And John Fetterman even made an appearance, which was really nice. He kind of walked up there, held a sign, and was like, "This is what I'm here for." That's my favorite John Fetterman quote, honestly. There was a little bit of controversy, if you heard about it, about a person speaking up at the actual rally site.
Oh, yes.
It was very interesting and like almost violent to that point. So when John Fetterman went up to the podium, did his little, "This is what I'm here for. I'm here for Sarah Innamorato." A person from the crowd, it was a group of people actually, they were protesting or advocating for the non-genocide of Palestine. They're advocating for Palestine. And the Palestine-Israel conflict is going on right now, and it's very, very tragic at what's happening. And John Fetterman previously, this is what I believe, John Fetterman previously stated that he is in support of Israel, and obviously that's a very diversive topic, and these groups of advocates and I guess protesters came to this rally with that in mind. So when he stepped up onto the platform, a guy from the crowd stood up and exclaimed, I think the quote was 4,000 dead children in Palestine, 9,000 dead civilians, like what are you gonna do? He stood up and said those statistics and kind of made a little, like a rampage in the corner of the room. Me being journalist, I ran right across just to go see what was up, and it almost became a little violent at that point. So obviously he stood up, he's exclaiming, John Fetterman, he made a comment. I'm not sure how tasteful this comment was in retrospect, but he pointed out that, I think he actually said, he was like, "I can't hear you. I had a stroke," or something on the lines of that, trying to make it more lighthearted, which it did. It kind of released the tension from the room more so, but was that really a tasteful comment, which is a lot of what I'm theorizing, but a lot of people are theorizing. Despite in the moment, it was very much, let's take a deep breath before things get really tense and people start leaving. So that's when police came in. They were starting to get louder and louder, and they obviously grabbed the guy to restrain him and escort him out. But as they were escorting, I saw it right in front of my eyes. If you go to the WTAE video where they have it, you can see me in the background, which is, you can also see Ethan Ruinski too, which was very interesting. He ended up right in front of my eyes, just started swinging at the police officers. It was getting down and dirty. They had to like pick him up and escort him out, and as they were leaving, more of the group of the people started reading off more statistics, screaming about the safety for Palestinian citizens, and that is a very big statement, and I support their advocacy, I support their things, but maybe it wasn't the right place or time, especially how John Fetterman, he did it very well in the way that he didn't address it, but he lightened the mood, which really helped the rest of Sarah Innamorato's campaign. So it was a really nice event. Sad that happened, but overall it really got the people going for her campaign and for her votership.
Yeah, that's so cool that you got to experience that. Thanks so much for being here with us, Kalyan.
Thank you.
Public transportation is a hot topic in the county executive race, with the winner of the race having control of the Pittsburgh Regional Transit System. For more on changes to a local bus route, here's UView's Addison Deal.
In a city like Pittsburgh, public transport is key to getting residents where they need to go to. But with plans for the rapid transit bus line coming up, people in downtown are stuck wondering how they're going to get to work today.
It affects my commute pretty heavily. I live in Oakland, so them changing the buses is kind of sucks, I'm not gonna lie.
Jake is just one of the dozens of commuters to Point Park University who rely on the bus to get to class every day. But the bus line he takes from Oakland to downtown has been halted since October 1st.
But if they wanted to do that, I just don't know why they would take away buses from another route to try and fix that, because now it's just going to make the commute even longer. And also the 61 and the 71 are like probably the most consistent bus routes, the quickest too, and the change is going to affect a lot of people's commutes.
Despite minor news coverage, most bus riders say that this came as a surprise to them.
No, I didn't really know until they put up these flyers on the actual bus stops. They never made an actual announcement about the buses changing. They just put the flyer up.
Bus lines 61D and 71A, C, and D are now only serving Oakland and do not make stops in Uptown or downtown. While commuters are struggling with the changing bus lines, Pittsburgh Regional Transit says that the Rapid Transit line will be a much better change.
Currently, there is an abundance of service in the corridor, and oftentimes we see buses bunching. So meaning one bus comes right after the other, everybody gets on the first bus, and then the second bus is empty. This will sort of smooth out that traffic or those travel patterns.
The plans for the Rapid Transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025, but the lines running from Oakland to downtown have stopped running since October 1st. In downtown Pittsburgh, this is Addison Deal reporting for Point News.
Thanks for that PRT update, Addison. Now let's check in with reporter Jonah Summers live at the Innamorato Campaign Watch Party. Jonah?
Thanks. So you want to talk about a story, right? Well, Sarah Innamorato, she has one. She was born and raised in Allegheny County, graduated from North Hills High School, then went to the University of Pittsburgh. Right out of the university, she went to work for Apple. Then she became the co-founder of She Runs SWPA, which encourages women to run for office. Right after that, she ran for state legislature in 2018. She got that position. Now, she's running for county executive. She is not only the youngest person to run for the position and be a candidate, but she's also the first woman. This fits perfectly with her campaign and who she has running her campaign for her. I talked to some of the managers and they told me that they're a ragtag team. They're all working class people and they all are running the campaign together. There's only about 5 of them. The campaign itself has been targeting young people all along. And here at the Mr. Smalls Theater in Millvale, PA, you can tell the music is very modern, it's very hip, and all the people in here, they're all hyper, they're all ready to go. They're all ready for Sarah Innamorato to be elected as this next county executive in Allegheny County. Reporting for UView Television in Millvale, PA, this has been Jonah Summers.
While many races have yet to be called tonight, our time ends here. But that does not mean the coverage will end.
That's right. Be sure to tune into Newsnight tomorrow night at 6 for continuing coverage of key races in the state.
And if you want to see more of what the talented students at UView have to offer, be sure to check out our YouTube channel and social media pages at UView Television.
All of our shows are 100% student produced, and what you see would not be possible without dozens of dedicated students working both on and off camera to inform our viewers. But until next time, I'm Cade Montgomery.
And I'm Natalia Hillen. And from all of us here at UView, thank you for watching and have a good night.